BKG, Shrimati Lasi Devi BKG, Samveda Bhakta Vrind BKG. Go, Premananda, Hari 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 Go. All glories, he assembled devotees. All glories, he assembled devotees. All glories, he assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Go Ranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Go, Premananda. So we finished chapter 4 already? Okay, so we're going to do our Nectar of Devotion classes and read from Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion, which is based upon the Bhakti Rasam Rita Sindhu, which means the ocean of the nectar of devotional service. So, shoot. Okay, Nana Shastra Vichara Naika Nipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Mitakarano Chibhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Bande Rupa Sanatano Ragu Yago Shri Jiva Go Palako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Maybe someone can straighten that picture up. It's whenever I see a crooked picture, I get disturbed. A picture of Krishna. If there's a picture of Ravan, I don't get disturbed. It's crooked. A picture of Krishna should never be crooked like that. Look, don't drop it. Okay. So, the purity of devotional service. All of the previous instructions imparted by Srila Rupa Goswami in his broad statements can be summarized thus: as long as one is materially inclined... No. The other way. Slightly. Okay. No.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, more or less. Not really. It's a little bit tilted. Yeah. Okay, good. As long as one is materially inclined or desirous of merging into the spiritual effulgence, one cannot enter into the realm of pure devotional service. Next, Srila Rupa Goswami states that devotional service is transcendental to all material considerations, and that it is not limited to any particular country, class, society, or circumstance. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service is transcendental and has no cause. Devotional service is executed without any hope for gain, and it cannot be checked by any material circumstances. It is open for all without any distinction, and it is the constitutional occupation of the living entities. Prabhupada's making indirect or direct reference to this verse. Savai pumsam paro dharma yato bhakti roksache hoitakiya pratyata yatma suprasidate. That devotional service is a topmost occupation for all living entities, and it is not deterred under any circumstance, and there is no material condition to execute devotional service, a prerequisite. In the Middle Ages, after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya's great associate, Lord Nityananda, a class of priestly persons claiming to be the descendants of Nityananda, calling themselves the Goswami caste. They further claimed that the practice and spreading of devotional service belonged only to their particular class, which was known as the Nityananda Vamsha. In this way, they exercised their artificial power for some time, until Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the powerful Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, completely smashed their idea. There was a great hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successfully, and it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. Besides this, anyone who is engaged in devotional service is already at the status of being a high-class brahmana. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's struggle for this movement has come out successful. In fact, they actually even tried to kill Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They bribed the policeman and the police chief. And the police chief said, normally we have no problems taking bribes and getting people killed. That's our system. But in the case of a great sadhu, we're afraid to do it. And another time they went on pilgrimage and in Vrindavan, and actually the storekeepers, everyone closed all the temples so they couldn't enter. They were so upset because they were just like into this ritualistic, hereditary Brahminical status. It is on the basis of his position that anyone can now become a Gaudiya Vaishnava from any part of the world or any part of the universe. Anyone who is a pure Vaishnava is situated transcendentally, and therefore the highest qualification in the material world, not only to be in the mode of goodness, has already been achieved by such a person. Our Krishna consciousness movement in the Western world is based on the above-mentioned proposition of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, our spiritual master. On his authority, we are claiming members from all sections of the Western countries. The so-called Brahmanas claim that one who is not born into a Brahmin family cannot receive the sacred thread and cannot become a high-grade Vaishnava. But we do not accept such a theory, because it is not supported by Rupa Goswami, nor by the strength of the various scriptures. Little stories about this. That one time the devotees went to one of the temples of one of these ritualistic brahmanas, and the ritualistic brahmana said, I'm blessing you so in your next life you can take birth in the proper families and then become Krishna conscious. And then you can worship the deities. So they went back and told Prabhupada this story, and Prabhupada said, you should tell him that you're blessing him so next life he could take birth in the Krishna consciousness movement. and join the Krishna conscious movement. Anyway, I mean, there's many stories about how we were criticized. Now, just to get a little technical, there's different paths. There's the Vedic path, there's the Pancharatriki path, like this, and the Bhagavad Vidi path. Vidi, of course, means path anyway. Bhagavad Vidi. So these three paths are not necessarily equal. In other words, if someone is not born in a Brahmin family, shouldn't be doing the Vedic path. Vedic path means Vedic rituals, karma kanja rituals, which you're not interested in doing anyway. And doing all the sacrifices from the Yajur Veda, chanting the hymns and the Rig Veda, and that's not really what we're qualified for, nor is it important anyway. In Kali Yuga, Ekon Dharma, Krishna Nam Sankirtan. So the paths that we follow are Bhagavad Vidi and Pancharatriki Vidi. And of those two, let me explain what that is. Pancharatriki Vidi is the path of regulated devotional service and deity worship, getting up early in the morning, doing your puja like that, and Tulsi worship and all that other nice stuff. Bhagavad Vidi is reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and preaching Krishna consciousness and chanting the holy names and doing Sankirtan. That's Bhagavad Vidi. Prabhupada described these as two different tracks. He said a train runs on two tracks, and we need both of them. He said of the two, Bhagavad Vidi is more important than Pancharatriki Vidi. But without Pancharatriki Vidi, you get pretty wild. And your Bhagavad Vidi goes down. And I traditionally give the example of my own experience in this. Like many years ago, before any of you here were born, I joined the Hare Krishna movement. You remember that. And then when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, a few months after I joined the Hare Krishna movement, or was it a year, I was traveling with the sannyasi. I was actually Veerananda Maharaj. I was a brahmachari at that time. And he told me that now you're traveling with a sannyasi, so you really don't have to wake up early anymore. And as far as offering food, we just go to the supermarket and Sri Vishnu the bag of groceries. And then at one time I actually offered the whole supermarket to Krishna. I was thinking that there's compassion in prasad distribution. I said, my dear Krishna, of course I couldn't offer the meat, but my dear Krishna, whatever is acceptable in this supermarket, please accept. So anyway, it was pretty wild. I mean, we were, at least the first few days, we were waking up, like at 7 o'clock in the morning. And of course we chanted, we chanted the japa. And then as far as prasadam, we would just buy things in the supermarket, bread, just regular, as they say, karmi bread. It's interesting, karmi bread. And a label, this is karmi bread. It's a brand of bread. So anyway, and we bought, we ate quite a bit because we had made salads and we bought salad dressing at the supermarket too, the packaged salad dressing. And we were just, Thousand Island dressing, French dressing, Italian dressing, We were having a good time. Cheese sandwiches, So then, after the first few days, we noticed that consciousness was going down. We were preaching, we were chanting, but the consciousness was going down because the regulation wasn't there. So then we decided that we should cook, and then so we got a gas stove, and I used to cook in the back of the maxi van. It's a big cargo van. It's called a maxi van. Anyway, some of you may know what I'm talking about. And has a wheel well in the back, where the metal goes over the wheel, and I use that as a surface to roll the rotis. We took advantage of everything, And so, one of these pump gas stoves, and sometimes I had to cook while the driving was going on. And that's quite dangerous because it's kerosene in there, and you can just have an explosion. Anyway, but then, the consciousness went up, and then we started getting up early, and then we started having Mangal Arti and all-night laundromats, which was really interesting because we had put one of these madrasas over the machine, the laundry machine, and set up candelabras on the side and a picture of Panchatattva and had a whole arti. And many times some woman would come in to do her laundry in the middle of the night. That's when things weren't so dangerous. Nowadays I don't think they have all-night laundromats anymore. But, people, there was no terrorism in those days, and crime was very low. Nobody was scared of anything. We were out at night, or people out, even ladies were out at night, and there was no danger. So anyway, they'd come in and they get shocked. They'd see a bunch of brahmacharis jumping up and down in front of a laundry machine. Can you imagine that? And we had a drum too, drum and cartels too. It was quite shocking. Of course, as they say in ISKCON, they got purified. As the lady had a heart attack and left her body in the middle of kirtan.
I wonder what she was thinking,
Yeah, we were pretty weird. I mean, even when we would go to campgrounds, and it was cold out, it was like freezing, snow on the ground and everything. And then we'd use the bathroom in the campground to chant Hare Krishna. Not to do arti, but we would chant our japa inside, because it was warm inside the bathroom. Big public bathroom. And then some man would walk in, because ladies wouldn't walk into a man's bathroom, but the man would walk in to shave himself. And you have all these Hare Krishna devotees, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's really...
What was the reaction?
Was the reaction? I never asked them, It's just like, you're young and you think, you don't care, what people think. when you're young. You just like, we're Hare Krishnas, and you know, if you don't like it, we're going to chant a little louder. I mean, it was weird. I mean, from my perspective right now, it was weird. Like even on Harinam, you know, there'd be some old lady in the street, and then we go with a Sankirtan party to circle. Yeah, the poor lady. You know what I mean? Yeah, we just form a line around her. We just thought, you know, this is compassion. We were pretty weird in those days, but anyway. So Pancharatraki Vidhi, getting back to the point, and Bhagavad Vidhi are important, but of the two, Bhagavad Vidhi is more important. Now, if you just do Pancharatraki Vidhi, then you just really get into basically Niyamagraha after a while. Niyamagraha means, you know, you're doing your devotionals, but you forget the goal, and you're not properly hearing and chanting, because all the different types of devotional service are dependent on Shravanam and Kirtanam. And that's Bhagavad Vidhi, right there. And, you know, Archanam and Dashanam and Sakya and Atma Nivedanam and Vandanam, they're all dependent upon Shravanam and Kirtanam. So Bhagavad Vidhi is actually the most important thing. But other things should not be neglected. So we'll go on. Srila Rupa Goswami specifically mentions that every man has his birthright, and that includes the ladies, to accept devotional service and become Krishna conscious. He has given many evidences from many scriptures, and he has especially quoted one passage from the Padma Purana, wherein the sage Vashishta tells King Dilipa, "My dear king, everyone has the right to execute devotional service just as he has the right to take early bath in the month of Magh, December, January. There's more evidence in the Skanda Purana in the Kashi Konda portion, where it is said, in the country known as Mayura Dvaja, the lower class people who are considered less than Shudras are also initiated in the Vaishnava cult of devotional service, and when they are properly dressed with tilak on their bodies and beads in their hands and on their necks, they appear to be coming from Vaikuntha. In fact, they look so very beautiful that immediately they surpass the ordinary brahmanas." And you actually see this when someone is dressed properly, a Vaishnava is dressed properly, they actually look like they're coming from Vaikuntha. Thus, a Vaishnava automatically becomes a Brahmin. This idea is also supported by Sanatana Goswami in his book, Hori Bhakti Vilas, which is the Vaishnava Guide. Therein, he has clearly stated that any person who is properly initiated into the Vaishnava cult certainly becomes a Brahmana as much as the metal known as Kongsa, bell metal, is turned into gold by the mixture of mercury. A bona fide spiritual master, under the guidance of authorities, can turn anyone to the Vaishnava cult so that naturally he may come to the topmost position of a Brahmana. Srila Rupa Goswami warns, however, that if a person is properly initiated by a bona fide spiritual master, he should not think that simply by the acceptance of such initiation, his business is then finished. One still has to follow the rules and regulations very carefully. If after accepting the spiritual master and being initiated, one does not follow the rules and regulations of devotional service, then he is again fallen. One must be very vigilant to remember that he is the part and parcel of the transcendental body of Krishna, and that it is his duty as part and parcel to give service to the whole, or Krishna. If we do not render service to Krishna, then again we fall down. In other words, simply becoming initiated does not elevate one to the position of a high-class Brahmana. One also has to discharge the duties and follow the regulative principles very rigidly. So, and of course that's the typical example we use of Punar Muchika Bhava. I think you all know that story, yes? Yeah. That Punamushika Bhava means again become a mouse. And that's the story very quickly of once upon a time there was a rat, or mouse, sorry. And the mouse was being harassed by a cat. And so he went to a sage, and he said to sage, my dear sage, help me. And the sage turned him into a cat. And then the cat was being harassed by a dog. And so he went to the sage, and the sage said, okay, become a dog. And then the dog was being harassed by a tiger. And so he went to the sage, and the sage said, all right, become a tiger. And then the tiger was being harassed by an 8-legged, it's called Shudra beast. And the sage says, okay, become one of those beasts. And then the beast began to chant the Prashana mantra after that, looking at the sage. And the sage said, Purna Mushika Baba, again become a mouse. So the whole point is that whatever we were before, if we neglect the regulative principles, then we go back to that particular platform. And so that's especially dangerous if someone was in the mode of ignorance before. Like, smoking marijuana, whatever. Now, in many countries, actually, marijuana is becoming legal. Here, too?
For the patients.
For the patients. And I just read that the new breeds of marijuana are actually more potent than the old ones, of people getting psychoses from smoking. Anyway, apart from that, whatever one was doing before, whatever state of consciousness one was in before, it just comes back to you. And then, so you have to be really careful to be strict. Otherwise, who you were before comes back. Otherwise, we don't remember. We're not supposed to remember a person's background. We're not supposed to talk about that. That's offensive. Yeah, if you say, Krishna Chandra, before I met you, you were on the street smoking marijuana. So I'm not taking you very seriously. So, not that he was, but anyway. He was born in a Vaishnava family. And so, we should never remember someone's past, at least sinful past. If they have a devotional past, that's kind of nice to remember that. Srila Rupa Goswami also says that if one is regularly discharging devotional service, there will be no question of fall down. But even if circumstantially there is some fall down, the Vaishnava need have nothing to do with the prayaschita, the ritualistic ceremony for purification. If someone falls down from the principles of devotional service, he need not take to the prayaschita performances for reformation. He simply has to execute the rules and regulations for discharging devotional service, and this is sufficient for his reinstatement. This is the mystery of the Vaishnava devotional cult. There's actually one story where one devotee, somehow or other, he ate by accident in a Muslim's house, and he thought he had lost the caste. Then he went to a Brahmin, and the Brahmin said, he asked the Brahmin, what am I supposed to do? I've fallen down from my, whatever, from my situation. And the Brahmin said, drink some molten metal. And that's the austerity, that's the price. And he didn't like that. And then he went to the Vaishnava, and the Vaishnava said, no, just chant Hare Krishna. So, of course, Prabhupada here says, circumstantially, if there's some fall down, that means accidental. That's why when Krishna says, my devotee, in spite of the most abominable action, is to be considered saintly because he is rightly situated, that abominable action refers to an accidental deviation, not a premeditated deviation. Like one time there was a devotee who had, anyway, this is an interesting story. He had, someone ran away with his wife. And this devotee planned and planned and planned. And he killed the person who ran away with his wife. And so then he quoted from this Shastric injunction that if someone steals your wife, if someone sets on fire, if someone, whatever, then you can attack them and kill them. And the devotees asked Prabhupada, is this true? And Prabhupada said, no. The point is, if someone is in the act of kidnapping your wife and she's not going voluntarily, most of the times the ladies go voluntarily. It's just very few kidnapping cases like that. And just like when Ravan, he would kidnap these girls, even though they were married, they were happy to be with him. And he was cursed anyway to die if he forced himself upon a woman. So anyway, so the point is, the Prabhupada said that no, he did the wrong thing. And secondly, it's not that he's considered saintly because he premeditated the wrong thing. Like if you're going, let's say if you're preaching and you go to the university dormitory or whatever, and they're smoking marijuana and you breathe the air. That's an unpremeditated, accidental fall down. You going. I remember preaching in the university, sometimes the air was so thick with marijuana smoke, you couldn't even see the persons in the room. Yeah. So I go in and I get a little dizzy, because we go door to door in the dormitories. We were very tricky. We would go into the dormitories, and on each floor there would be something called a resident assistant, one of the students who actually took care of all the other students. And he would eventually catch us. And he would say, you got to get out of here. And we said, okay, we'll leave. And he says, is there anyone else? And I said, no, and even though there was another devotee. Then I'd switch floors. We'd jump from one floor to another. Anyway. It was fun. Only one time I got arrested. and they let me out pretty quickly because I started chanting Hare Krishna so loud. They took away my neck beads and my glasses and everything, and they gave me a tin cup, and I was banging it on the walls and chanting. They said, "You get out of here." So that's a way to get free from prison. Anyway, practically there are three processes for elevating one to the platform of spiritual consciousness. These processes are called karma, jnana, and bhakti. Ritualistic performances are in the field of karma. Speculative processes are in the field of jnana. One who is taken to bhakti, the devotional service of the Lord, need have nothing to do with karma or jnana. It has been already explained that pure devotional service is without any tinge of karma or jnana. Bhakti should have no tinge of philosophical speculation or ritualistic performances. And of course, that's in reference to the nutshell verse of the whole Nectar of Devotion. Anyabilasha Shunyam Gyana Karmana Vitamana Kulyena Krishna Shilanam Bhakti Uttamam. That this devotional service is, that defines devotional service positively and negatively. That devotional service is devoid of any fruit of desire or even the desire for liberation. And positively, it's done with a positive attitude, a devotional attitude. It's active and in accordance to the Lord's desire. In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami gives evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 21st chapter, verse 2, in which Lord Krishna says to Uddhava, the distinction between qualification and disqualification may be made in this way. Persons who are already elevated in discharging devotional service will never again take shelter in the process of fruitive activity or philosophical speculation. If one sticks to devotional service and is conducted by regulative principles given by the authorities and acharyas, that is the best qualification. This statement is supported in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 5th chapter, verse 17, wherein Sri Narada Muni advises Vyasadeva thus, even if one does not execute his specific occupational duty, but immediately takes direct shelter of the lotus feet of Hari, Krishna, there will be no fault on his part, and in all circumstances his position is secure. Even if, by some bad association, he falls down while executing devotional service, or if he doesn't finish the complete course of devotional service and dies untimely, still he is not at a loss. A person who is simply discharging his occupational duty in Varna and Ashram, however, with no Krishna consciousness, practically does not gain the true benefit of human life. The purport is that all conditioned souls who are engaged very frantically in activities for sense gratification without knowing that this process will never help them out of material contamination are rewarded only with repeated births and deaths. In the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is clearly stated by Rishabdev to his sons, persons engaged in fruitive activities are repeatedly accepting birth and death, and until they develop a loving feeling for Vasudeva, there will be no question of getting out from these stringent laws of material nature. As such, any person who is very seriously engaged in his occupational duties in the Varna and ashrams and who does not develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, should be understood to be simply spoiling his human form of life. This is confirmed in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, verse 32, in which the Lord says to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, any person who takes shelter of me in complete surrender and follows my instructions, giving up all occupational duties, is to be considered the first-class man." In this statement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is understood that people who are generally attracted to philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic, political, and social welfare activities may be considered nice men only in the calculation of the material world. From Srimad Bhagavatam and other authentic Vedic scriptures, we learn further that if a person simply acts in Krishna consciousness and discharges devotional service, he is considered to be far, far better situated than all those persons engaged in philanthropic, ethical, moral, altruistic, and social welfare activities. So, the problem with all these activities, ethical, moral, altruistic, and social welfare activities, is that generally you end up helping people who are breaking the regulated principles. Mm-hmm. Just like I was speaking to one of my disciples the other day, and she was saying, she feels so bad when she sees I'm trying to think of a politically correct word for bum. She sees the home challenged, anyway, the homeless, that's also not so nice. She sees the challenged people in the street, in the city, and she gives them money. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, if you give them money, what are they going to spend it on? They're going to spend it on liquor, cigarettes, and whatever. And you're going to be responsible for that. And even if you give something in the mode of goodness to someone, let's say if it's in the proper place, proper circumstance, we're not talking about spiritual right now, you have to come back to receive that back from them in the next life. Yeah. So you have to take birth again because they have to pay you back. And also, the mode of goodness activities entangle one with a false sense of material happiness. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. So one has to be careful. We feel sorry for people, so give them prasadam. And of course, when you give them prasadam, they say, "I don't want prasadam." But that's all right. Yeah. That's all you should give them. Because if you give them something, except in Vrindavan, then, I give people Lakshmi in Vrindavan because they're Brajabasis. But other than that, I will not give charity. Why? Because people will misuse it, The material world is such that practically anything you do, you're contributing to people's sinful activities. We had this discussion in Fiji about a devotee, or several devotees who make their living selling kava, kava. And they were saying, should we stop? And I said, well, whatever you do, at least you're making money and using the money in Krishna service. I said, we have some devotees who drive a taxi. And if you drive a taxi, sometimes you have to transport meat, right? Practically speaking, you're connected, but we should be careful not to voluntarily help someone in their sinful activities. If you're a doctor, you're curing someone. Sometimes you got to give them injections that have eggs in them, right? Sometimes. I thought the flu shot has eggs in it.
They're changing every year.
Every year it changes. Sometimes you got to do that. And what can you do? And the person you're curing You know they're going to go out and get drunk and do all sorts of things that are not right. They're not halal. So, or kosher, or pukka, or depending on which language you're talking. Then you just, you can't avoid that. But we should really, as far as our voluntary activities, we should not engage in things that are just mode of goodness with a false sense that we're helping people, because you're not really helping people. The same thing is more emphatically confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, verse 41, which Karabhanjana Muni addresses Maharaj Nimi as follows: My dear king, if someone gives up his occupational duties as they are prescribed for the different varnas and ashrams, but takes complete shelter, surrendering everything unto the lotus feet of the Lord, such a person is no more a debtor, nor he has any obligation to perform the different kinds of activities we render to the great sages, ancestors, living entities, and family and society members. I'd like that verse when I joined the movement, because my mother once said, you have a debt to me, you have to come back. And I said, no, we have no debt. One has to be careful not to be heartless in the application. I said, I have no debt, plus because I'm a devotee, you're getting, so many relatives get the benefit, 10, 11, 12 generations backwards and forwards. You may die out of separation from me, but then you'll be thinking of me and go back to Godhead. So, it's definitely like a misuse, a cruel use of philosophy. This is the early days of the Hare Krishna movement. Ma means Maya. That's another favorite quote we had. Well, and that's why Prabhupada came to America, because the Americans were like that. Practically any other country in the world, if Prabhupada was in India and asked parents to give their children to Krishna, or at least one son, nobody did it. Prabhupada came to America and said, all right. And the parents were so upset with Prabhupada that I remember Gargamuni and Brahmananda's mother, she was so upset with Prabhupada. And she came to the temple one time, and Prabhupada, being very bold, said to her, could you give a donation? and then she said, she actually said, I've given you both my sons. What else do you want? Then they were from a Jewish family, so the mother was really upset. Anyway, nor has he any need to bother executing the 5 kinds of yajnas, sacrifice for becoming free from sinful contamination. Simply by discharging devotional service, he is freed from all kinds of obligations. The purport is that as soon as a man takes his birth, he is immediately indebted to so many sources. He is indebted to the great sages because he profits by reading their authoritative scriptures and books. For example, we take advantage of the books written by Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva has left for us all the Vedas. Before Vyasadeva's writings, the Vedic literature was simply heard, and the disciples would learn the mantras quickly by hearing and not by reading. Later on, Vyasadeva thought it wise to write down the Vedas because in this age people are short-memoried and unable to remember all the instructions given by the spiritual master. Therefore, he left all the Vedic literature, Vedic knowledge, in the form of books such as the Puranas, Vedanta, Mahabharata, and Srimad Bhagavatam. One thing is, it says it's all right to give up one's prescribed duties, but in devotional service, one should work according to one's psychophysical nature. So prescribed duties that are outside of devotional service one renounces, but inside devotional service there is the concept of varnashram. That's why Krishna told Arjuna to do his duty as a Kshatriya. So we all have a different varna, and we should stick to the activities of our varna, except in emergency situations. There are many other sages like Shankaracharya, Gautama Muni, and Narada Muni, to whom we are indebted because we take advantage of their knowledge. Similarly, we are obliged to our forefathers because we take our birth in a particular family where we take all advantages and inherit property. Therefore we are indebted to the forefathers and have to offer them pinda, prasad, after they are dead. Similarly, to the people in general, we are also indebted, as well as to our relatives, friends, and even animals such as cows and dogs who render us so much service. In this way, we're indebted to the demigods, to the forefathers, to the sages, to the animals, and to society in general. It is our duty to repay them all by proper discharge of service. But by the one stroke of devotional service, if someone gives up all obligations and simply surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is no longer a debtor nor obliged to any other source of benefit. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the Lord says, give up all your occupations and just become surrendered unto me. I give you assurance that I shall give you protection from all sinful reactions. One may think that because he is surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will not be able to perform all of his other obligations, but the Lord says repeatedly, don't hesitate. Don't consider that because you are giving up all other engagements, there will be some flaw in your life. Don't think like that. I will give you all protection. That is the assurance of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. And you see in the Mahabharata that Yudhisthira Maharaj didn't completely agree with that when he was told by Krishna to lie and say that Ashwatthama is dead. And he refused to do that until Krishna arranged for Bhimsena to kill the elephant Ashwatthama. And then Yudhisthira Maharaj actually lied. It's not that he told the truth by saying Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead. That's a lie also. When you say things in such a way to mislead people, you're lying. So he not only lied, but he also disobeyed the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he had the worst of both worlds. There's additional evidence in the Agastya Samhita, as the regular principles of Scripture are not required by the liberated person, so the ritualistic principles indicated by the Vedic supplements are also not required for a person duly engaged in the service of Lord Ramachandra. In other words, the devotees of Lord Ramachandra or Krishna are already liberated persons and are not required to follow all the regulated principles mentioned in the ritualistic portions of the Vedic literature. So what devotee of Lord Ramachandra did not follow the rules and regulations? In serving, and he did the right thing in serving Lord Ramachandra.
Hanuman.
What way? Vibhishan. Vibhishan, because Vibhishan rejected his family. You know, his elder brother. Oh my God. I mean, in your culture, obeying your elder brother. Do you obey your older brother? No. I don't think so. He doesn't. But in the traditional Vedic culture, I mean, it's like you see Ram and Lakshman. I mean, even Ravana made reference to that when criticizing Vibhishan. He said, look how Lakshman is serving his elder brother, and this Vibhishan is useless. He's not even following the example of Ram and Lakshman. So, and then there's the example in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's son-in-law, Amoga, criticized Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for eating too much, which he wasn't. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said to his daughter that my daughter, Sati, is no longer married. She has no husband. And that's like a violation of ritualistic principles. The woman is supposed to stay chaste to the husband even if he's a Rakshasa. And serve him human flesh. Anyway, so, no. But that's, one of the injunctions about the chastity of woman. But at the same time, in a circumstances like that, one is not obligated to stay with the demon. So anyway, similarly, 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th chapter, verse 42, Karabhanjana Muni addresses King Nimi and says, my dear king, a person who has given up the worship of the demigods, like in Fiji, and has completely concentrated his energy in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has become very, very dear to the Lord. As such, if by chance or mistake he does something which is forbidden, there is no need for him to perform any purificatory ceremonies, because the Lord is situated within the heart. He takes compassion for the devotee's accidental mistake and corrects him from within. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita in many places that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, takes a special interest in his devotees and declares emphatically that nothing can cause his devotees to fall down. He is always protecting them. So, any questions? That's the end of the chapter. Questions? Yes.
Good that we mentioned about in the beginning about Sarvanam and Kirtanam. So when it comes for the word Shravanam, we have to hear. So is it like Katha and Kirtan as well, right?
Yeah, both.
But nowadays we see that we only hear that, okay, today is my place, it's just a Kirtan. So we don't focus on Katha too much nowadays.
Really? No Shravanam? No here? That's nectar devotion. That's Shravanam. Well, we should hear regularly. I mean, what can I say? Devotees should be taking advantage of modern technology. To hear, there's no reason you're driving a car and then you can take advantage and play some MP3s. You're chanting japa, you got your little japa thing on your finger.
Also when we
That's
do
a
some
joke.
home
You know.
programs.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Does anyone have those?
Yeah.
You have one. So Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Oh, I chanted 16 rounds.
Like Parikshit Maharaj, he was Shravanam.
He was Shravanam, yeah. Shravanam, and Shukadeva
Was
Goswami
Katha.
was Kirtanam. Yeah, he was Katha. So yeah, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and then Vishnu Smaranam. But without Shravanam Kirtan, you don't get Vishnu Smaranam or any of the other processes of devotional. So you can't neglect it. You know, there has to be regular, hearing Bhagavatam class every day. Nityam Bhagavata Seva. So, any other questions? Yes.
It's just a practical thing that I'm going through at work.
Yeah.
So we always raise money for the chopper appeal. It is a rescue helicopter.
Yeah.
So usually every year what we used to do is we used to cook something from home and then we used to go and sell it. But this time one of the staff came up with the idea that we'll do barbecue on a Sunday. So 2 Sundays. So
So you can do tofu barbecue.
yeah. So so what happened was that everybody said that they'll contribute so much of their time to go and sell it. So
To sell the barbecue?
yeah, to sell the barbecue.
No, you have to say this is against your religious principles.
Yeah. So I told that because every time they ridicule me, but when they go to the restaurants, I don't go because I have
Yeah.
to sit and So I thought, okay, I said I'll come, but I'll only handle the cash. Then afterwards, I started thinking, that's as good as selling the product. So I just went there because I told them that I'll come at that particular time. But then what I did was, I felt very
You
upset.
just tell them you
I
can't.
couldn't do it. So what I did was I just gave $40, from my side.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
I said, okay, that's my contribution. I can't handle this. I didn't even go in because the smell was so strong.
Yeah, the smell.
So I went away. And now the second collection is happening on the coming Sunday, not this Sunday, next Sunday.
Yeah.
So again, there was yesterday it happened, the meeting. And I came up and I said, they said, what time are you coming? I said, I'm not coming. They said, why are you not coming? I said, because I can't handle it, and it's against my religious principles and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So my manager was angry. I said, if you want, I can contribute. Then one of the staff said, oh, we don't need contribution, we need help. So I said, I'm sorry, I can't help. And then after that, I had to go and ask my manager for leave for day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then she said, no, you're not a team player, so I'm not going to give you leave. Because every time, you never go for any dinners, you never go for outing with us, and then you don't
Well, you can go for outing.
Yeah. Outing is, they go to the restaurants, Gurudev, and they
So you
sit
just
and
drink
eat.
some,
Yeah, drink
get a
some
salad or
juice.
something.
I used to take my food and I used to go and eat it.
In the restaurant.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
I just take my plate,
Yeah.
whatever we make home, prasadam, and I go and eat. But I don't feel like eating because they're sitting next to me.
Well, in certain cases you have to do stuff like
Yeah.
that to keep your job. Yeah.
Let's-
I wouldn't. You shouldn't take part in selling the meat or making money from it. But sometimes you got to do that. I mean, I had to go to my mother's 90th birthday party, and they were eating, all sorts of things, and I just explained to them, and they all respect that. I mean, if they don't respect your beliefs, I think that's probably illegal if someone doesn't respect your religious beliefs, isn't it? I mean, that's harassment, basically.
In fact, I told my manager.
I mean, what if they were selling pigs and you had some Muslims working for you?
That's what I asked her because she's a Muslim. I said, Fatima, just tell me, I know that touching the pig is, against you.
Yeah.
So, and would you touch the pork? Then she said, yes, I will do it. I said, you sure
Then
you
she's
will
not
do
a
it?
good Muslim.
No, she's not.
Fallen down.
Yeah, I mean, a good Muslim would never
Never.
even go near a pig or pork. So anyway, I mean, try to participate as much as possible to keep a good relationship. But at the same time, don't engage in any activity that's nefarious, like selling meat. Phew. I mean, people should, but you should be a team player. That is important. So you got to balance it. You got to balance it. But to be there selling, I mean, it's just.
And the smell is so strong, the onion and meat.
Yeah, I mean, it's obnoxious. You just say, it's just like a Muslim with pork.
That's the direct question I asked her. And she said, probably she wouldn't do it. but
No, she
just
wouldn't
wanted
do
to-
it.
Yeah.
She wouldn't do it. I mean, it's so much against the Muslim beliefs. Even if there's a pig there, they'll go to the opposite side of the street to avoid seeing the pig. I mean, that's good question. But yeah, go to the restaurant with them, or you either bring your own food or ask for a salad.
Yeah.
And
Juices.
Gurudev, one more thing, like there's Ramayana happening in one place,
Yeah.
and then they're having dinner. So definitely, I'm so attracted to prayers. So I say I want to go for my prayers. It's
No,
a
but in a case like that, you have a responsibility in your workplace too. You can hear the Ramayana some other time. But somehow one has to be practical in this world. You don't want to upset everybody in your workplace. But in certain circumstances where they're handling meat or selling meat, taking cash from meat, just that that people should respect. And if they don't understand religion, sometimes you have to explain it's ethical. In certain cases, you have to explain that it's just my ethical belief. These are animals and it makes me cry. And then you could show them a film of a slaughterhouse. How could they do that? It's subhuman to eat or sell or transport meat. Subhuman. I mean, even like fish. The fish has an eye when you buy it and it's looking at you. How can you do that? Well, it's not looking, it's dead, but I mean, you just reminded. Or chicken, it's just such an abominable thing. Anyway. All right, anything else?
So Gurudev, in this case, contribution, if suppose we have to contribute something.
Sometimes we have to for our workplace, yeah. If we don't, then we're in trouble.
Mm.
Sometimes you got to do something like that. Yeah. But not that voluntarily, just out of the blue. You see some challenged person on the street, you just give them money. I remember when I was young, I learned that lesson before I joined the Hare Krishna movement. I was in New York taking a subway or something, and there was one of these persons, and he was begging, I just need some money to eat. And I gave him some money, and the police said you shouldn't have done that, because he's just going to use it to get drunk. So even the police told me not to do it. So, I mean, you have to see, judge the circumstance. I mean, in this world, we're always, especially if you're working a job, you're always entangled. Even if you're not working a job, I mean, just like even myself, I go and buy something. I'm giving money to a company that's going to be doing so many things. The employees are going to be eating meat, making a profit. You know, if I buy something from Amazon, you know what Amazon is? You know, they're not vegetarians. You know, so you're always connected in some way with. The idea is to minimize it. You can't avoid your connection in this modern society with sinful activities, unless you just go to the Himalayas or something like that. And just, what can you do? Okay.
Here, Gurudev, we have lots of fundraising. Sorry.
You have lots of
Lots
fundraising.
of fundraising programs here where it's for good cause. So somehow,
If you have to be involved in it, do it. If you don't have to be involved in it, don't do it. That's the standard. You know, if for your work, you have to be involved. You know, or it's going to create people going to start criticizing the Hare Krishnas for being hard and cruel. You know, then do it. Otherwise, try to avoid it. That's the standard. But not that just out of the blue, you know, you start feeling, oh, I got to help these poor homeless people like that and buy meat for them or something. That should not be done voluntarily. But involuntarily, I mean, because of the circumstances, we have to do so many things in this world. So many things. You know, nothing we
On
can do.
the other hand, we can pray for them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we pray. We should always be compassionate. We should always pray for people. We should always try to give prasadam. Yeah, that's a really important way to approach people. You give them prasadam. You know, a cookie or something like. Give them something they can relate to. I've seen too often the devotees give out like Indian sweets to people in the West. Like they go on the street and they give someone a glove jamun. It's dripping, you know. He said, oh, here's Mahaprashanam. What am I supposed to do with it? You know, you give them a cookie instead. Prabhupada had us make cookies for people. Everyone likes cookies. So got to be practical. All these things are just like, be practical. Don't be fanatic, be practical, but also be strict. So it's a balance. You know, it's a balance, not one way or the other. Okay, on that happy note, we got to do the deity worship. And we got a lot of people watching. Here we are. See that? See everybody. Thousands of people. Okay. Okay.